War Eagle Auburn family, welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live, where we get together, we hang out, we talk about what's going on in the world of the Auburn family spectrum. We're always heavy on the sports here on this channel, but if it's orange and blue, it is what we do. Thank you for joining us, whether you're watching live or on the replay. We appreciate you hanging out with us, just even for a few minutes of your very valuable time as I knock the microphone around, just to be with us and be part of our little family within the Auburn family. On this live stream, we're discussing the official breaking news that Austin Davis has been named as the new offensive coordinator for the Auburn football team. It is the news that has been circulating, rumored, somewhat solidified, but it is official now. It is posted on all of Auburn's social media out there. There's no question anymore. We can actually talk about it as a solidified fact. Austin Davis is your new offensive coordinator. So I'd like for us just to kind of react to that initially, share some initial thoughts. We've done some speculating about this on some previous live streams because, as I've already alluded to, this has kind of been a formality at this point, which is why we waited for the official news in light of everything that's been going on with news in the Auburn world these days. So it is official now. We can talk about it and actually talk about it with some hardcore concrete facts, and just want to get y'all's opinions, thoughts on it, what it means for everything. Now that the search is done, it's like the last big question mark. All of that that's been taken care of. All that we're going to take care of on this live stream today. So would love to hear from you. So don't be afraid. Post comments, questions, derogatory rebuttal. Welcome to those of you that are on Twitter and Facebook as well. We invite you to come over to YouTube. It's the better experience, but it is over there if you'd like for you to check it out. A couple things you can do for us as we get started on our live streams. Make sure you smash that like button, even out in the social media platforms. If you can, to help spread it out, share it in a Facebook group, invite some people in. But you can smash the like button here on YouTube. You can also post right now everywhere in the comments section where you're watching from, even if it's on the replay that you're watching, city, state, international, with a War Eagle, or if you're one of those weird fans that comes over to this site and you're not an Auburn fan, post whatever you need to make yourself feel better. Just no RTs, please. But all that is how we kind of get things started on a live stream here. We already see Corey Benson, one of our channel Booster Club members, is already here in the stream. Thank you, sir, for joining us today on the live stream. And thank you all, whether you join now or on the replay. Initial thoughts, impressions, derogatory rebuttal. What do you got? Give it to me right now in the comment section. Here's what I'm at. I'm just glad it's done. I really am. I'm just glad that the offensive coordinator search is officially done. I think it's been done for quite a few days now, but at the same time, I think, it's just good to officially have it. No more questions about it. Major names have left that were going to left, or some people have announced that they're going to stay. But this was the last big piece of the puzzle that needed to get figured out for the next season. But you were hoping it was going to do it before the bowl game. I would anticipate that there would be no interaction. Don't know that for a fact. Not interaction, but significant help being given for the bowl game, with it being literally I think it's on the 28th, so 10 days away. I mean, he might kind of be similar to Coach Harsin did last year for the bowl game. He might give some thoughts and impressions and maybe able to attend one practice or something like that. I don't know what his obligations are in relation to the Seahawks for the rest of the season. For those of you who aren't aware, he is the current quarterbacks coach for the Seattle Seahawks and has gotten a lot of praise for what he has done with Russell Wilson over the past couple of seasons. So I think that's the biggest check mark on his resume if you're looking for things to check off on a resume. So that's kind of where it kind of starts at when you analyze, was this a good hire? Was this a bad hire? And we can't really make judgments that are very well educated yet, but we can make some assumptions and maybe see where this is kind of going in all of this. And I knew this was going to be one of the first things that was asked or brought up. What do you think about Davis trying to get Slovis to come to the Plains? Well, we don't know if that's actually happening because those reports were coming out before this was made official. But like we said, this has kind of been a formality thing that we've been waiting for at this point. Here's my take on any situation where it's Auburn, no matter who's the coach, head coach, offensive coordinator, if there's interest in an opportunity to take advantage of a relationship that you might have built, or an interest level or a familiarity that you might have, and that means either bringing in a better coach, better player, something like that, you should always explore those options. We'll see if it actually, pans out. My suspicion, where I see things at this point, is that the coaching staff is, at least to some degree, comfortable with their positioning with TJ, Demetrius Davis, and now Holden Geriner. Think I'm pronouncing that right. So to bring in another transfer quarterback, to me, at this point, it's only kind of a 50-50 toss-up, but you would want to at least exploit those relationships to the best of your ability to see what kind of opportunities there might be out there. But I know that's the biggest storyline out there. So if that's what the coaches deem is the key to success for next season, is bringing a guy like that, whether it's just to compete in the room like TJ did this year, or he's the guy, bring him on in. That's all I say. I am all about expanding the Auburn family and bringing it. It's the same thing I said with TJ last year. TJ, bring him on in. I wasn't expecting to be the starter, and that proved to be true when Bo was in the mix, but we'll find out, right? So I think a lot of people probably feel similar about that. Would like to have him, but let's see how the quarterback race shakes out. And Corey is pretty excited about the hire, he said. Wade says, interested to see if some things that if we see some things that have been missing. Quarterback development, wide receiver development. Harsin is building his team. Quarterback development, I think you saw that this year regardless. Bo got a lot better in some areas. I think you have to give some of that credit to Bobo, because he had just as much hand in with quarterback development as he did, as Harsin did. And I think you also vicariously can give that credit to Harsin as well. He's the head coach after all. It's the same kind of token. You can't fault one without giving, you can't fault somebody without also giving them the credit for the things that do work. Now, was that development outstanding? Probably not in most people's eyes, but I wasn't expecting there to be leaps and bounds improvement of that. Wide receivers, I don't know necessarily that this hire is going to do anything for the wide receivers outside of improving quarterback play. That issue has been addressed. The coach, who apparently wasn't fitting, I think that's a fair thing to say, is now gone. Keesaw seemed to at least righted the ship for the most part, and it wasn't getting worse for the most part. It was just kind of staying the same, maybe with a few upticks. So when you talk about that, Wade, with the wide receiver development, that is, they will benefit if there's a better quarterback, if there's better quarterback coaching or something like that. But we'll wait and see. Let's not assume that just because a new coach is brought in that things will get better in that area. Doesn't mean that things weren't getting better with the other coach. It just wasn't a good fit overall. Corey says he would rather have 4 deep in the quarterback room. I think so, but then there's that balancing act that you've got to do. We were 4 deep already because we had Bo, TJ, Demetrius, and Trey Lindsey this year, and Grant Loy. Then you had Trey Lindsey as well thrown in there. And I know 2 of those really aren't legitimate opportunities at starters, but they're still part of the equation. So you can never be 4 deep in terms of having 4 quarterbacks who are expected to be starters there, because somebody's going to get, usually 1 or 2 of them, antsy and want to move on. But I agree. I would love that too. That's just not a reality of the transfer world that we live in. Jabbar asks, big question. What does this mean? Will we be good? It's like the biggest question out there. While I don't think we can answer that question simply from this hire alone, the fact that now the offense has its identity in that it knows who will be taking coaching from. Most people assume, and I read really quickly the official statement and article from auburntigers.com. I may have missed this, but I skimmed over it very fast. I've kind of got to pull it up over here too. Is that he will be the quarterback's coach and maybe helping with play calling, but it seems like Harsin's going to be the play caller. So the offensive identity is already there and being developed now. Don't know how much Austin Davis is going to factor into that. I would hope that the goal is for Harsin to groom him to what he wants him to be. And that would be a really good thing to start, right? A lot of people talk about developing a coaching tree. Nick Saban has that a lot. Kirby Smart is starting to develop that to some extent. This could be the start of what you see for Coach Harsin as a good coaching tree. Bring it in, a guy that's easily moldable to your style, that's fresh, that's young, it's got a lot of future ahead of him. Let him spend some time underneath you, give him the reins over time, and then if there's enough success and it's warranted, goes off and begins your coaching tree, so to speak. Corey says he thinks that Austin Davis is licking his chops about coaching Holden. I think most coaches are. We talked about this in a live stream. I'm going to credit, I think it was Dusty who talked about it. And we've discussed it a lot on our live streams, talking about when you watch Coach Harsin's press conferences, he's very good at giving you information without truly giving you information. I know that sounds oxymoronic, but he really says a lot in what he's not saying, and also what he's saying at the same time. I know I'm just speaking in riddles at this point. That's kind of you just got to really listen close to what he's saying. You can see the way he lit up when he talked about Holden Geriner. So I think that there's a lot of talent that Auburn has at its disposal. It had this year, and it will have in the future. Austin Davis will not be short of that. This is not going to Vanderbilt in the SEC and struggling against SEC talent. You have the talent here. Don't really know what this question has to do with it. Is Deion Sanders the next Nick Saban? I think Deion Sanders is the next Deion Sanders. That's about all I'll say on that. Let's see. Neil White says, and he's got a quote from Coach Harsin, do you want to do it fast or do you want to do it right? Now, this is an interesting thing, and I don't know that Neil is meaning it this way, but I'm going to address it this way. I think a lot of people are also trying to read things into what Coach Harsin says and think it's shot. Like there was a quote that was posted the day after Bo announced, and a lot of people tried to make that out that he was saying that to Bo. From what I've seen and watched of Coach Harsin, he's not that type of guy. So a lot of people, I think, would read this and say this is a shot at Coach Malzahn. No. Doing things fast doesn't mean you're not doing them right. It's just a different way of doing them. And this team was not in a way at a point where it can do things fast. It has to slow down and get back to where it does things the right way. And then, and only then, could you do things fast again. But I am appreciating the quotes that he's putting out, Neil. And I think he's doing some very good, timely things. This is the time during bowl season where, especially if you're not in the playoffs, this is about the future more than it is about completing the season. And so setting the foundation, the expectations, the standards, those ways that you are, the ways that your state of being as a football program, this is the time to start establishing that. Let's see. Tuberville had a good coaching tree. Yes, he did. A lot of people didn't realize that. If you paid attention, you did. So it's a great point to bring up. Go back to the 90s and you'll see the good ones. I'm blanking on them now, but I can see them in my head. Gosh, Kyle, I could you used to be able to name all these guys off that have done great things. Grantham, wasn't he one of them at one point? But anyway, there was into certain level of degrees. Some have kind of petered off by now, but there was a good coaching tree there. Smart only coaches how to look at the brass ring, not hold it. It's a fair point. He'll get you there. He'll get you to compete for it. That's all about he can do at this moment. Now, we may be eating our words in a month's time, 2 months' time? No, not 2 months' time. I meant to say maybe like they play on New Year's Eve, and then they'll play the next week, I guess. So that's 3 weeks away. But yeah. What's up, Clint? What is up? I need an analysis of how the Seattle Seahawks logos and uniforms ties into Auburn. If I can have that on my desk by tomorrow, that'd be great. I need that article. I just need you to put that out, just tie it in there somehow, how that's going to be the key to Auburn's success, Clint. Neil said, going back to the question, building a program from the ground up, right? So, and I think the ground up building started this year, but there's a lot of chipping away that you have to do, right or wrong, of the old regime. And I was a fan of the old regime, but that's not the regime anymore. This is Coach Harsin's program. This is his team. So the chipping away is still not done, but this is again setting more foundation to fall back upon, and then begin. Once that foundation is laid, you can take that next step. And sometimes you take those steps really quickly. But yeah. Let's see here. Neil, and yeah, I figured you're not one of those that does those type of things. So I know our fan base, and I know a lot of because I see all this stuff in comments and stuff. That's why I take the opportunity to address it, and that's why I said it wasn't really about what you personally were saying about it. Do you know if there's going to be a press conference to introduce him? Do I know when and if that's going to happen? I don't know when. Typically, yes, they do for offensive and defensive coordinators. I don't remember a time where they really do a press conference for like positional coaches. Um, this could be a really unique situation, Linda. By the way, thank you for being a Booster Club member. If you're interested in becoming a part of the Booster Club, I should take more opportunities to do these type of things. I'll bring the little thing up now on patreon.com/E2C network. Starts at $1 a month and goes up. You can get different levels of perks over there. So check that out. And you can also become a channel member here if you would just prefer to do that. And that is only a $1 a month thing here. Just some ways to help support our content. To finish answering your question, traditionally, I would say yes. I don't know what the obligations are yet to Austin, to Seattle. Is he finishing the season out? Being a quarterback coach, I don't anticipate there being a need for him to stay as much because I'm sure they have an offensive coordinator and can kind of fill that role. It really depends on what Pete Carroll wants and what he and Coach Harsin have worked out at this point. Neil is talking about Tuberville's coaching tree. Was Houston Nutt part of it? I guess he was at one point. Bobby Petrino, yes. Gene Chizik, Will Muschamp. That's a good one. Yeah. You saw a lot, and you can see a lot of those have faded off. And I think that's why it's being forgotten now. But if you went back into the early 2000s, if you went back, especially the 90s as well, that coaching tree was there. Coach Tuberville was doing it long before Nick Saban was doing it. Jabbar says, Holden has great ball control from what I've seen. The highlights, the right coaching, maybe a Heisman. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves at this point because we were convinced this was the year. But here's what I will say. Everybody gets excited about highlight reels from high school. They all look great. That's why they're a highlight reel. And I'm not trying to disparage Holden Grenier, not trying to say he's not going to be good. You recruit and you offer them to be part of your program based off of those things. So there's a legitimacy to them. But when people use their high school, and I'm not saying you are, Jabbar, but this does happen. It happened for Demetrius Davis all this season. He looks so good in high school. He should be starting. No. Now, if he goes out there like Bo did and showed he's the best quarterback on the roster at the time, put him in there. Highlights or no highlights. But I think more what he's saying here is give the right tutelage, the right amount of timing. The sky's the limit. The talent is apparently there in high school. Let's see if it translates to college under the tutelage of Austin Davis and Harsin as well, because I'm sure he'll have his hand in that as well. Neil does not like the color scheme. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't hate it, especially when they stopped using the gray as much and they focused more on the purple and that lime green, I guess is what you would call it. I actually like that a lot better. Here's Clint going further on that. Seahawk logos classic uniforms were wild when released in 2011, but have grown a lot more. Neon green is bad. Should only wear the gray pants. Blue and gray is a goat look. I don't like their blue and gray. I don't. I know it's not really purple, but that's kind of it's a different kind of color there. Yes, Rise Life. We are just kind of getting initial reactions and discussions about this. Is this his first time being an OC? That is a great question. Let's stop. Hey guys, look, Chase is here. Good to see you, Chase. What are we talking about? The news, the official news, sir. And by the way, if you guys haven't checked out his channel, you need to go on there. And he's already put out a video about who is Austin Davis, because as we've talked about initially in this live stream, is that this has basically been official already. It's just been one of those things. We've been waiting on the announcement to come from Auburn for the longest time. So he's already done a video about that. I'll probably put one out as well, just kind of not in the same vein, but just doing just initial thoughts, because this is right now just kind of taking it all in, reaction type of stuff at this point. No analysis is really being had at this point. But let's jump back here. to answering this question. And I knew we'd get the two questions I knew we would get is this his first time? What's his coaching OC experience? And are we going to get Kedon Slovis? Slovis is what we'll call him. We've already addressed the Slovis thing and the factors of that, but we can talk about it for those of you that might be just jumping in. Here is his resume. And this is probably a very brief and not full resume here. As a coach, he has been the Seattle Seahawks assistant quarterbacks coach in 2019, and for the last 2 seasons has been their quarterbacks coach. No OC positions ever have been held, and barely any coaching assistants, experience outside of the 2 years. He's been all over the place in terms of an NFL quarterback. Tennessee, Seattle, Denver, Cleveland, St. Louis, Miami, St. Louis again. He was a walk-on. I know that scares some people. He was a walk-on at Southern Miss who won the job. Seems like we've heard that story before. So just because it's a walk-on doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. That should say something about the recruiting. That should say something about the analysis sometimes of the rankings and things like that. Sometimes people put a little too much stock in stars and rankings and stuff. You'll find quite often those don't really work out exactly as they should. But with all that being said, I think, sorry, I'm getting my mouse to kind of work back over here. I have 2 monitors now, so it's kind of a little bit of a hectic trying to keep everything straight at some point. Not a lot of offensive coaching experience, none to be exact. So that's a little bit scary, right? But we've already talked about that. This is a hire that you can already see the writing on the wall. Coach Harsin's going to have his hand in, probably play calling. But don't be shocked if this is something that transitions into play calling given over to Austin Davis, if that's the way it starts. In fact, I would hope that would happen because I think that's Coach Harsin's goal, as any head coach, is to be the CEO, to oversee everything, to be involved in the offense, to be involved as much as he can in the defense, the special teams. That's the goal of the head coach. That doesn't mean they can't call plays, but I would think that's the place that they want to get to. But I understand why it's a little bit scary for them to not have the OC experience. Rise Life says, do you think we should have tried for the Western Kentucky OC? And do you think he turned us? And I was going to ask, what makes you think we didn't? What makes you think we did? I would say that all eligible options were contacted or vetted before contacting. And for whatever reason, that didn't work out. We now know that Venables, according to him, he was contacted in the running for the head coaching job last year. And people were asking, why aren't we going after him? Well, we apparently did, according to him. Who knows if that's true or not? Those were some interesting comments. Listen, I think the one thing that Western Kentucky guy had is that he had OC on his resume. If Coach Harsin was wanting to have a guy come in straight away and be the OC, there were much better options out there. Jeff Grimes would have been one of them. I don't see this one as coming straight away in. And maybe straight away in means only 2-3 games. Maybe at the 4th game, he's given the reins for a little bit more. I don't know. Believe it or not, I would discuss some of that with y'all here, but I know we'd lose a lot of our viewership. There's a wall over here to my right, chock full of pop culture stuff that you will never see, just because that's just how I am. I'm mean like that. Spider-Man. I'm a big Spider-Man fan. So I'm a little giddy after watching that this weekend. No spoilers because big things that we can't talk about. Anyway, we're not here about Auburn stuff. Y'all are the ones that got me thinking about that. Let's see here. Trying to catch up in chat here a little bit. Robert, we've kind of addressed this. There's no announcement of that yet that I know of. I just skimmed through the initial posting and things like that, but I think that's what we're anticipating. You called it purple. Your opinion is valid. Thank you, Clint. I appreciate that, buddy. Listen, my wife tells me that I'm colorblind. I will say that purples and blues, a lot of the time, especially darker blues, they tend to kind of have some ambiguity for me personally, but that's a little bit up in the air. Jabbar, thank you so much. Yeah, and we've got several content creators, podcasters, producers, whatever you want to label us, that do that stuff, and traditional media entities too. Our job is to inform and entertain, and I'm glad that you find value in that. So thank you for your kind words, and I'm sure everybody else appreciates that as well. Bubba and the old man. Good to see you guys. Austin Davis is a bright young mind in the coaching ranks. He was a Conference USA legend, Southern Miss. He'll be fine. Harsin will call plays, and Austin Davis will work the QBs and help come up with the game plan. There you go. Pretty well stated right there. Don't really find too much wrong in that. Also says Davis will work his way up until Harsin is comfortable with him calling plays. I'm 100% confident in him. And we should be, right? This is Coach Harsin's hire. We shouldn't. Here's what I don't want. Remember, let's rewind this to last year. Coaching searches after Harsin was hired. The buzz about Derek Mason. That didn't work out great this first year, right? I still don't think that meant he should be fired, but the buzz wasn't warranted, obviously. People were skeptical about Bobo. There was a time where it looked like it was a pretty good hire, maybe for a short minute, but it was, right? So, all that being said, let's take a beat. Let's not expect big things to happen in year one, but let's see. The trajectory always needs to be going at least at some incline. If it stays stagnant and doesn't ever kind of come up, that's obviously not a good sign, right? If it goes down, that's definitely not a good sign. And we saw that with Bobo, unfortunately. You know, I can't really argue that there was a downward trajectory, especially in the second half. So you can understand why the move needed to be made. But yeah, Auburn, the purple and orange, the purple. Yeah, I don't know really what that was about, but anyway. All right, initial thoughts. So, how about this? Those that are here in the room right now on social media across, whether you're watching Twitter, Facebook, here, or on YouTube, how would you rate this hire in terms of your confidence that it's the right one? 100% to 0%. What do you feel on that? And it's fine to be, you can be honest and say, I have zero confidence in this hire, but I need to have a reasoning behind it. You can be 100%. I don't think you should. I think you should be a little skeptical because that's just I think, in my opinion, that's the right way to be. Where do you fall in that scale? And I would like some reasoning too, if you're willing to offer it, and why you think it was the right hire at the right time. I'm a guy that really, unfortunately, tries to ride the fence a lot. I can thank my friend Clint for driving that into my head, because that's the type of guy he is there too. But I would say that I'm leaning on the side of probably like a 75% confidence that this was the right hire. In my mind, there were a lot of good options out there that I think would have been better fits for what I like in an Auburn offense. Jeff Grimes. But that doesn't mean that they were the right vision, the right fit for here, you know? Some people are offering like a letter grade. You can do that as well. I just really want to hear your overall confidence in the hire. And, obviously these grades will change over time. We got Rise Life with 64%, 50-50. Have no idea what to expect. Seattle is terrible on offense. But has Russell Wilson gotten better as a quarterback? I haven't done that analysis yet to really look at it. What I'm hearing is yes. Remember, a lot goes into an offense success, just more than the quarterback. A lot of people didn't get that this year with Bo. It's a lot that has to go right or wrong for an offense to be successful, even more than the quarterback. Bubba says B- hire. I love Zach Hill. I think the Zach Hill hire made the most sense across the board. It was a guy that was been with Harsin, had the OC behind him to, warrant that. It made people feel more comfortable than this one does. And I think that's where most of this, not 100% on this hire, is coming from, because there's no OC experience attached to his resume. And that is completely understandable. Oops, let me back up here. Wade says 90%. Harsin has a track record for recognizing talent. Same with Pete Carroll. Where do you get that track record from? Not saying it's not Wade, but I'm curious where you get that from. Because was Bobo a track record for recognizing success? I love to play devil's advocate in these type of things, so I hope you understand it. It's not picking on you in any way. It's just where my mind goes in trying to think through these things. I would say that every coach has a track record for finding talent, those that have seen any level of success. But I'm just curious. Pete Carroll, I would say yes, he is a talent for finding or paying for success at UAC. I can't really fault him for anything in the NFL because I don't really care about the NFL, to be honest with you. I don't like it. I don't believe his scheme will fit Auburn 40%. And Cord, I love it. That's why you don't like it, and here's why. The one thing that I would counter towards you, Cord, is that I don't believe that his scheme is really going to factor into this as much as some think it will. And this has already been addressed a little bit, that Coach Harsin is going to be calling plays, or it's going to be a committee type of thing. They work together as you would hope they would, and Coach Harsin overrides and says, no, I want it to be more like this. But where you can see his handprint directly is going to be on the quarterbacks. So how they progress, how they develop, everybody's favorite buzzword, is going to be the measure of success for Austin Davis. Somewhat in year one, I think you should give him more time than just 1 year to assess his quarterback development. But he has to stay here more than 1 year, right? So it kind of goes both ways. Shelby says he's going to bring a pro mind. I guess you mean mindset. I like it. Yeah, so that's a certain level. And think about the marketing that Coach Harsin and staff did for signing day. We talked about this a lot. And when I did my video of my 5 takeaways, that was one of them on there. Is the marketing that was used to say, Auburn is your path to the NFL. And not that that hasn't been done before, but that is now the focus, right? They did the whole ding, 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 ding. Coach Harsin came to the podium with the next pick, and they had kids come. It's little things like that that show this is our focus to these players, and it means a lot. You think some of these things don't make a difference, but they do. Believe it or not, it shouldn't be this way, but uniforms makes a difference to some. Doesn't mean that you win or lose, but it does make a difference to some recruits. No, Russell Wilson is not the same as he was 3 to 4 years ago. Does that mean he has declined? I would assume that, because again, I play fantasy football, and I try not to pick any Alabama players, so I know that makes me very probably a poor fantasy player. That's about my extent of NFL knowledge. But I would take the fact that I haven't seen Russell Wilson in the Super Bowl, and I haven't seen Russell Wilson's name out there a ton in the last couple of years, may say something. So, but just because that didn't work out there doesn't mean it won't work in the college ranks, right? He got hired for a reason. He's only been doing it for 2 seasons as the quarterback's coach, having full control over it. Bubba says it seems like Harsin is now taking full control of the offense. It looks like he's willing to go down with the ship as long as it goes his way. He's his own man. I think it's a great way to look at it. There's something to be said about that. Now, that can be frustrating for us as fans, because then there's no one else to blame. And some of us tend to be I'm going to never say anything critical about my coach. That's not a good way to be either. But that's also, it can be the opposite way too. I'm just saying that I like that in the early stage, this is kind of the mindset that he seems to be taking. I agree with that. You think this OC, would have helped Bo a lot, especially with the type of quarterback Russell is? Potentially, yeah. I would say that Bo knew this was going to likely be the option and factored into his decision to leave. So that is probably part of the reason he's not here, is that he did not feel comfortable with that fit and that as a route to the NFL, which is whether you think he's an NFL quarterback or not, doesn't matter. He obviously wants a shot at it, which I would hope every football player would, want a shot at that wants to continue that. So he knew he had this opportunity, at least a strong chance at this opportunity, and he decided to leave. So there's something to be said with that. You think that Bobo hire was mainly for recruiting? In what way, JC? Because my understanding is that he was very, unfond is not a right word. He was not fond of going out on the recruiting trail. Doesn't mean he can't recruit. Maybe there were certain recruits at the time. I find it very skeptical that a coach is. I'm very skeptical that a coach is hired for just that reason alone. That's a poor decision if that's the case. I'm not saying that wasn't the decision. So I just find that highly unlikely. I think Coach Harsin, as he said in his press conference when he hired him, they had some familiarity with each other, being out there in the West Coast for a little bit, saw his track record playing in the SEC, saw some value of that in his first year coming to Auburn, playing the SEC West. And I think there were a lot of things that factored into that decision, and it didn't work out. We'll see if this one does. Sports with Cord. Everyone's gonna look at him coming from the pro level and think it's a great hire. I would have looked at Dan Mullen more. Oh, Cord, you and I agree a lot, and this is one way where we just can't. We're not going to agree whatsoever. I'm so glad we are not going to have the stain of Dan Mullen on our. I would hire Bobby Petrino as our head coach before I would hire Dan Mullen. That's saying a lot. I would hire Tony Barbee back as our basketball coach before Dan. No, that's a bit extreme. Can't lose VP. We've seen how much it sucks to not have him, despite the great success of our two assistant coaches who did a great job in those 2-game absence. But you get my drift. No Dan Mullen. No. Those fences cannot be mended. You can forgive, but you will not forget. Dan Mullen, don't you ever come near my Auburn Tigers. And I'm probably going to somebody clip that and use that for later on when that happens. Wilson has declined. Okay. And that's kind of what I assumed, Neil. Talking about Russell Wilson. You don't hear a lot about him. You assume that the hype hasn't been that great. Corey says, I think Harsin is methodical in his hire, so I'll give him a 75%. I think I need to see what he brings to the table to score him better as an actual game footage as Auburn coach. Great perspective. See, that's what I love right there. Here's my initial thoughts. I need this to, make a full opinion. And I think that's the way you should be. It's fine to say I'm speculating now, and this is what I anticipate I will need to make a full decision in time. Russ himself has been phenomenal. He's gotten better, but I don't know how much Austin Davis has played into that, kind of like Tom Brady's quarterback coach right now. I think to assume that the positional coach, the offensive coordinator, and the head coach never factors into the greatness of a player is not true. But I grant you that it's probably at the level of Tom Brady, where you're like, I just kind of make sure he's crossing his T's, dotting his I's, and all that kind of stuff. Russell Wilson to me is not that level. So I would say that he probably had a fair hand in this. Just kind of speculating a little bit. Everybody's vomiting at Dan Mullen right now. I would not. It's what's the Grinch song? I wouldn't touch you with a 9.5-foot pole or something like that. I wouldn't touch him with a 100.5-foot pole. Oh, I just sports with Cord. I'm not trying to pick on you, buddy. You're just gonna have to give me a reason why that you would want Dan Mullen anywhere near our program. And like I wouldn't want Dan Mullen picking up the trash in Jordan-Hare. I wouldn't even wish that on him because I don't want the stain of him on our program. Wilson is 14 in total QBR rating for 2021. So what? Middle of the pack out of I'm assuming that's starters. There's 30 teams. So middle of the pack. So 30 teams, right? Yeah. 4 divisions, 32 teams. Yeah. 4 divisions with 4 teams each. So that's 16. 16 times 2 is 32. Doing math, that Auburn degree is going to use right here. So he is just above middle of the pack. So if you take those type of stats into account, that should make you feel a little bit better. This is a guy that's kind of either stayed the same or maybe it's maintaining above middle of the pack at the NFL level. College is going to be much different. Jabbar's asking just wide ranging questions tonight. They're not bad questions. Just what's your ideal staff? In my world, and this is just my preferences, is an offensive scheme and coaches that focus on run, set up to pass. Doesn't seem like so far that's what Coach Harsin wants. I hope that changes. Maybe he will now that he's more in control of that. That would be my, in terms of just being generic there, ideal staff would be those focuses right there. Focuses on defense would be great linebacker play. And I would focus more on the front seven. And that's kind of not, our focus has been more defensive back talent and that type of scheming and stuff like that, even though it hasn't been working out super great for Derek Mason so far. I'm more of that type of guy. Minds of conflict. I don't know that I've seen that. So, I mean, I've been online here for the last 30, 40 minutes, so it could have broken, but I highly doubt that. I have seen TJ Finley say that he's getting a lot of reps. Now, if TJ Finley's hurt, which he was getting back from injury, then maybe that's the case. Listen, I hope he does get to play a lot because I think the kid's waited long enough to show what he can do out there on the field. And we need some game tape on him to start making some really good decisions. Here's the difference then. It's the same case that I make to you about Bo versus TJ. It was never a case of Bo had the experience. Bo had the talent, the better talent based on that. That, you know, if you take out their playing time and try to do proportions with it, what you saw from TJ over his time proportionally wasn't better than Bo's, in my opinion. I know some of y'all are going to disagree with that. We need that to start making those proportions with Demetrius Davis. But you can't, if he goes out there in the bowl game and goes, wow, don't assume that means he's the best quarterback. We thought that with Elijah Canyon, and now he's gone. So just remember that. Let's hire Bo Nix as offensive coordinator. Well, that position's now filled. Let's see here. Dan Mullen, Urban Meyer can start a UCF team. Meyer has the kicking down. Please don't get Clint started on Urban Meyer stuff. He's a Jaguars fan, which I don't know why he abuses himself in that manner, but he does. So sorry, Clint, for the tumultuousness of your nature. All right. I'm not going away just yet, but I want to get your some initial last minute stuff in here for you guys. But please do get some more comments, questions, anything that you would like to talk about with Austin Davis, with implications of that going forward, thoughts and opinions on all that. Keep sharing that right here. Just want to cover a couple of things as our time starts to draw to a close here. Check out some of the links in the description if you can. Those are ways that you can help support our content here on this channel, but also our podcast out there on Apple Podcasts and all kinds of good stuff. One of the things you can do is become part of the Booster Club, patreon.com/E2C Network. Starts at $1 a month. It has different tiers where you can get some different perks. But there's also, if you don't want to go somewhere else, you can become a channel member here by hitting that join button. It's easier to find it on desktop. That's $1 a month. It's an easy way to help this content keep coming out. That's the options out there. There's also TeePublic where you can buy logos and gear and stuff. PayPal if you want to make donations. All of that's an option for you down there. The biggest thing that you can do is here on YouTube and here on Twitter, Facebook, wherever you're watching. Smash that like button if you enjoyed this type of content. Leave a comment, subscribe, notification bell, all that stuff so you never miss any uploads or live stream. Because that's the biggest thing, is just having you here, being part of our little family within the Auburn family. And we appreciate you guys so much for being here. All right, let's get back to some questions and comments here. Rise Life, do you think we'll get a transfer quarterback? If so, do you have a guess on who it might be? You know, we talked a bit about this at the start of the stream a little bit, so maybe you can go back and watch that, but I'll do a little bit here. Obviously, there's a lot of talk around Slovis and the interest, or maybe supposed interest level between Austin Davis before he was officially hired and him. I think we have a lot of talent and a lot of good options for year one, with Harsin calling the plays supposedly and Austin Davis coaching the quarterbacks to do what we have to have enough success. Is that win a national championship? There's a lot of questions out there for me to make that type of statement. Does that mean we won't bring in somebody? No. I would always take advantage of any interest to bring in anybody talented. It's why I was a fan of TJ coming here, because competition makes everybody better. Never thought TJ was going to win the starting job, and that proved to be true. And now you know why. He was the better quarterback. I'm going to keep saying it because it was true. Bo, meaning Bo. But that doesn't mean that TJ's not the best option now out there. We'll find out, right? We'll just have to kind of wait and see. It'll be fun to watch, though. There's going to be lots of rumors and speculation. Rattler is not going to be it. And it certainly ain't going to be Bo, because Bo kind of reaffirmed that, I think, in some articles last couple of days or so. Yeah, I know. I was curious about that as well. What sources was he saying about him starting? You think we're going to have a better team than last year? Ooh, a lot of big questions. Those are questions that can be better answered as we get closer and closer to the season. But here's what I will use to kind of make some initial thoughts on that, Edward. There's a new offensive coordinator. There's definitely a new offensive scheme. So you can almost look at it as still as the wide receiver coach is still in year one. Offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach is still in year one. So there's going to be some instability there. We are basically changing over the offensive line, which we needed to, just being honest. And that's going to factor into that as well. So really, it's a question of what is the talent like behind those guys, because they clearly weren't enough to start over them this year. Their development, their transition to starting roles is what's going to determine that success. Defensively, I feel a little bit better about situation, especially if we can retain some guys like a Derek Hall. I think he's making up his mind still. Jacoby, excuse me. Someone got really upset because I said had the audacity to misspeak and say Jacoby McClain. Owen, I believe, is still contemplating coming back. That'd be big. So if you get some of these key players back on defense, so you look at the schedule, and I've done a video breaking down the schedule for next year, so you can go check that out if you'd like. Very favorable early home schedule, a tough October. I can see a very fast and very exciting start for Auburn at home. How they get out of October is really going to determine what type of season it gets. I would probably still err on the side of an 8-4 season at this very moment. There's a lot still to be watched and discussed, though, before we start making those really concrete decisions. Corey, I have had a very busy last couple of days, which is why you haven't seen a ton of content outside the podcast on this channel in the last couple of days. So who did we lose in the portal? I feel like I would have heard more about it if it was a big deal. Jabbar asked, what are his strengths and weaknesses? Austin Davis, his strength is he has shown a propensity to be a very solid quarterback in his own right. Won a starting job as a walk-on, been a part of several teams as mainly backups, but still, that doesn't mean he's not a good quarterback. It means he may not found the right fit. Transitioned over to being a coach and got the full quarterback's coach job at the Seahawks and has coached a pro level. So I think his ability to understand the position, to teach the position, has been proven. Can he do it at the college level, though? That remains to be seen. So that would be his strength. Quarterback at the NFL level, a lot of experience there, teaching and playing. College, because it is different, that remains to be seen. Because just because someone's an NFL guy doesn't mean they're going to be successful here, and vice versa. You believe that if Slovis comes, he'll beat the Stars, and that may be the case. A lot of people thought that with TJ, and they were wrong. Not just in opinion, but facts. He wasn't good enough to beat Bo, as most of us thought all the way along. So it may be. Listen, and if he comes in, he's my guy, and I'm going to support him. That's who they want, and they good. Take advantage of every opportunity. Paratosh, I'm sorry if I'm not mispronouncing it. Why has recruiting dropped off at Auburn? I remember the time when we would virtually live in the top 10. Well, here's where I make some enemies, because For those of you that are focused about rankings and about stars, I understand why you feel this way. And I'm not saying you can't be that way, but I don't live that way. Rankings and stars don't matter. They don't. I'm sorry. They don't. They are an arbitrary ranking by media personalities to get you to click. Is there a lot of effort and a lot of time spent on developing those to make them the best possible? But they are still someone's opinion based thing. They are not actual stats on the field. They're not actual. I shouldn't go that far with it, but I will just say that I can understand why it feels that way. I'm more worried about, do we bring the right guys in and develop them, even if they're just a 3-star? Recruiting has dropped off, though, because you went through a transition period. And so you got to think about this from the end of 2019, which wasn't a great end. 2020 was a COVID year. Everybody struggled. To what degree is just the difference there. And then to 2021 was a transition year. So that's a 3-year period almost where a lot factoring against your recruiting. So the perception is going to be a little bit lower about you. It's going to be harder to recruit, especially people got to come play against Alabama and all that kind of stuff. It's just a lot of factors that fight against Auburn that can hurt them in several areas if you don't maintain stability, which was my fear with us making a transition at coaching. It doesn't matter anymore because we're here. All right, let's keep going here. We'll wrap up here in just a little bit. Dusty is probably coaching up his Bucks. Are they playing right now or something? He does love his Buccaneers though. Steven. It's a little mean, but I'll allow it. Our O-line was no line. Listen, they were not good. And there's nothing really they can say to argue that case, but I still love them and I am appreciative of their time here, but they definitely were not good. We're losing Harvey. That's the latest to enter the portal. Got it. I vaguely remember him. So I think we'll be okay. Anytime you lose depth is not a good thing, but there. Amari Harvey. That's who it was. Thank you. Amari Harvey. Yeah, great talent. I would say at that position, there's so much talent coming into that, especially transfer-wise, that's probably going to be starting the writings on the wall for a lot of them. So that one is probably self-evident of why it's happening. William, I'm glad we got an OC who's familiar with working quarterbacks. Well, most are. And in fact, I would say 99.9% of them are. But different offensive coordinators have different specialities, right? If we brought in Adele McGee, his specialty is running. Jeff Grimes would have been offensive lineman. We had we don't know yet, a good recruiting offensive line coach. Coaching will remain to be seen. But yes, this guy is a focus on quarterbacks, so you don't have to question about that. Will it translate to college will be the big question. Great analogy right here. Now, I will counter this a little bit. I'm going to not print. Graham is what I'm going to call you. I'm just not going to butcher your name because I don't want to be rude like that. Stars don't matter because Byron Cowart didn't live up to his 5-star. Yes, he did. He got, I forget where he got drafted, and he did very well at Maryland where he went. So it's not that his stars didn't matter. It wasn't a great fit here at Auburn. And he lived up to his potential a lot in some ways. In his time, I think he's still playing in the NFL. It's only been there for a couple of years. But your point stands that stars in the grand scheme of things do not matter. When somebody did a study recently, I think it was like a year ago, I saw this come out showing the number of 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, and I think some still do 2 stars that made it in the NFL. And what you found was the proportions were exactly the same as to the amount of which are given out. There are the fewest things that are given out, well, really 2 stars probably, but we'll just do 5, 4, and 3s. Or 5 stars, a few more 4 stars were given out, and lots of 3 stars. Tons of them. And you found the proportions matched that exactly to the amount. So what that tells you is that it's kind of a hit or miss thing, right? They could be right on it or they're right off of it. So I know it's fun to talk about stars. It's fun to talk about, and it's annoying for me to point that out there. I know it doesn't make a lot of you happy, but it's just the reality. And when we start changing our thinking about it and just enjoy who we're getting in some of the bigger storylines, like where we're getting them from, opening up recruiting lines again or maintaining them, what the philosophy is going to be, and the success of turning 3 stars. I am more excited about what we did with Roger McCreary from Coach Malzahn now to Coach Harsin and turning him into from a 3-star cornerback to arguably, not even arguably, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, the best cornerback in college football this year and should be the top one taken. Stars don't matter. Stars don't matter. USC picked up Rattler from OK. Rattler was a bust under Riley. And look, he may now be magic under Beamer. So then you could make the case that it did. It's an arbitrary rating. Have fun with it, but don't take it so seriously. All right, get some last minute comments and questions. We're going to hop off here just a second. Big Cat was a star and transferred and fell off the map. I think he did okay at UCF this year. I remember his name coming up a few times early on. Now, it was UCF. Nobody really pays attention to them outside the initial hire of Gus Malzahn. But I wish Big Cat well. I hope he has success and makes it to the NFL. He is a former Auburn Tiger. And for the most part, has maintained their relationship. I know he made some comments early on when he left that didn't make people happy, but it just don't matter to me anymore. Cody, I will grant you that. It matters more for school perception. Yes, in the arena of perception, that is correct. But a lot of that perception, you can't really control what a recruit thinks about, but you can control what you think about it. And I pointed the finger at you, but it's a general you. Most people can't understand that these days. That's why I have to clarify these things so often. It's a general you. Your perception of it is what it shouldn't change. You shouldn't think that a class is set. We're getting off on a tangent here. That's not really necessary. The point of this is Austin Davis is your new offensive coordinator. A lot of focus going to be putting for him on the quarterbacks. Will he bring in some talent? We'll watch and wait. We'll see how that's fleshed out in the relationship between how much he'll be involved in play calling with Coach Harsin, what the offense. Now the question is what the offense will be and look like going forward, hopefully with a lot of emphasis on running again. That would be the big thing there. Anyway, thank you guys so much for being here. This was a great live stream on a very impromptu basis, so thank you all for showing up. Smash that like button on the way out. Check out some of the links in the description, and I hope to see you guys back here. We will be back on Monday night, live at 8 p.m. It'll probably be the only scheduled live stream this week because of Christmas season. We normally do one on Wednesday as well. Probably not going to be able to pull that off. In fact, I'd almost say it's 99%, but definitely be here Monday night, 8 p.m. Central Time. We'll be talking about probably some basketball stuff, but let's just wait and see because things have been crazy this offseason for football. Thank you guys for being here. Until I talk to you again, though, War Eagle.